My name is Sandra G. Burgos, and I'm 29 years old. The night my mother sat me down across from the dining table and said, "You don't need 2 bedrooms. Your sister does." I actually thought I had misunderstood her. I waited for the laugh, the correction, the little smile that would prove my family had not just decided my home was a spare room waiting to be reassigned. But my mother, Linda, did not laugh. My father, Robert, sat beside her with his hands folded like he was at a business meeting, and my younger sister Sarah leaned back in her chair, with one hand resting dramatically on a stomach that was barely 10 weeks pregnant. I had worked 7 years for that apartment. 7 years of overtime, freelance projects, skipped vacations, cheap noodles, secondhand furniture, and pretending I was not tired when I was so exhausted, I sometimes cried in the shower before another workday. After college, I lived in a studio so small I could touch the bed and kitchen counter at the same time. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself sacrifice meant something if it led somewhere. 2 years ago, it finally did. I bought a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood with good light, quiet hallways, and a small balcony where I kept basil and 2 stubborn little rose plants. It was not fancy, but it was mine. The second bedroom became my home office because I worked remotely 3 days a week. That room held my desk, my files, my late nights, and the proof that I had built something no one handed to me. Sarah, on the other hand, had always been handled gently by our parents, like the world would break her if anyone expected too much. She dropped out of college twice. She bounced between retail jobs. She borrowed money and forgot to pay it back. Every crisis became a family emergency, and somehow every family emergency became my responsibility to understand. "She's finding herself," my mother used to say. I was finding myself too, but apparently mine looked too much like bills paid on time and not enough like drama. 3 weeks before that dinner, Sarah announced she was pregnant. The father was her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Tyler, a 30-year-old man who worked part-time at a vape shop and kept saying his band was close to making it big. They had been together about 8 months total, though never long enough in one stretch for anyone to call it stable. My parents were thrilled. First grandchild. First nursery. First chance to become the kind of grandparents they had always imagined themselves to be. I tried to be happy for Sarah. I really did. I hugged her. I said congratulations. I ignored the little twist in my stomach when Tyler said, "We're just going to see how things go before making big decisions." Then came Sunday dinner. We were halfway through roast chicken when my mother placed her fork down and said, "So Sandra, we need to talk about the apartment situation." I looked up. "What apartment situation?" My father cleared his throat. "Sarah and Tyler need more space now. A 1-bedroom is no environment for a baby." I nodded slowly, still not seeing the trap. "Okay, have they started looking?" My mother's face softened in that dangerous way it did when she was about to ask for something unreasonable and call it love. "Honey, your place is perfect. 2 bedrooms, safe area, close to the park, better schools. You're just one person. You don't need all that space." I stared at her. "My office is in the 2nd bedroom. You can work in a corner somewhere," my father said. "Babies need a nursery." The room went quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. I felt my face heat, not from embarrassment, but from the slow realization that they were serious. They were not asking me to help Sarah find a place. They were not asking if I could lend money. They expected me to move out of the apartment I had bought with my own money and give it to my sister. Not sell it, not rent it. Give it. I put my glass down carefully. "No," my mother blinked. "Sandra, no," I repeated. "That's my home. I worked for it. I pay the mortgage. Sarah has an apartment." Sarah's small smile finally moved. "It's not really enough for a baby." "Then you and Tyler need to look for something bigger." Tyler shrugged from the end of the table. "Rent is crazy right now." "So is a mortgage," I said. My mother's eyes filled with tears so quickly it almost looked rehearsed. "Family helps family." "I am willing to help," I said. "I can help you search. I can maybe contribute to a deposit if there's a real plan. Sarah's expression sharpened. A real plan? You always talk like I'm irresponsible. I looked at her hand still resting on her stomach. Sarah, this is not about insulting you. It's about my home. My father's voice hardened. You're putting property over blood. No, I said, though my voice trembled. I'm putting boundaries around something I earned. That was when my mother started crying for real, or at least louder. She said I did not care about my future niece or nephew. My father called me materialistic. Sarah said she always knew I resented her, and then whispered that some people just were not meant to be aunts. I left before dessert. The text started before I even got home. My mother sent articles about family support. My father sent me a spreadsheet showing how a single woman mathematically needed less space than a family. Sarah posted online about how it takes a village and how painful it is when some people refuse to be part of that village. By Wednesday, my Aunt Patricia had called me selfish. My cousin Mark asked if it was true I was making a pregnant woman homeless. I kept saying Sarah was not homeless. She had an apartment. No one cared. What hurt most was not that they asked. It was that they assumed I would eventually fold, because I always had. I was the reliable daughter. The one who figured it out. The one who needed less, complained less, and recovered quietly. But this time, they were asking for the one place where I finally belonged. And I was starting to understand something terrifying. In my family, my success had never made them proud. It had only made me useful. For 3 days after that dinner, I barely slept. I would sit at my desk in the room my family had mentally turned into a nursery, staring at spreadsheets I was supposed to finish for work, while my phone buzzed every few minutes with another message pretending to be concern. My mother sent me links about infant development. My father sent another spreadsheet. This one, comparing unused adult square footage to essential child growth space. Sarah sent nothing directly at first, which somehow felt worse. Instead, she posted little updates online about craving strawberries, feeling blessed, and learning who really showed up when life changed. Every comment under her posts felt aimed at me, even when my name was not there. I knew I had to speak to them again before the story became permanent. Before I became the cold sister who abandoned a pregnant woman. Before every aunt, cousin, and family friend decided I had a palace and Sarah had nothing. So I invited them to lunch at my apartment the following Saturday. I told myself it would help if we were sitting in the actual space. I thought maybe once they saw my desk, my files, the shelves filled with client folders, the bills clipped beside my monitor, they would understand this was not extra space. It was part of my life. Part of my work. Part of the reason I could pay the mortgage they kept treating like a decorative inconvenience. I made sandwiches, cut fruit, brewed coffee, and rehearsed calm sentences in my head. This is my home. I love Sarah, but I am not giving away my apartment. I can help her look for another place. I will not be pressured into solving a problem I did not create. At 11:15, 45 minutes before they were supposed to arrive, I heard my front door lock turn. For one stupid second, I froze with a knife in my hand and a tomato half sliced on the cutting board. Then the door opened, and my mother walked in like she owned the place. Behind her came my father, Sarah, Tyler, Aunt Patricia, and Uncle Michael. My stomach dropped. "You're early," I said. Mom smiled brightly, already taking off her coat. "We thought it would be better to get settled first. You used the spare key." "Well, of course," she said. "You gave it to us for emergencies." "This isn't an emergency." She ignored that and walked straight into my kitchen. Within seconds, she was opening drawers, moving utensils, and clicking her tongue. "Sandra, honey, you've been organizing your spices wrong for 2 years. Tyler fell onto my couch without asking and picked up my PlayStation controller. Sarah began walking slowly through the living room, touching the edge of my bookshelf, looking at the balcony, studying the walls, as if she were already imagining different paint. Aunt Patricia took both my hands like she was greeting someone at a hospital bedside. "We're all here because we love you." That was when I realized this was not lunch. It was an intervention. I tried to keep my voice even. Why are Aunt Patricia and Uncle Michael here? My father set his laptop on my dining table, because sometimes family needs outside perspective. Outside? I looked at my aunt. She's Mom's sister. Patricia sighed, already disappointed in me. Sandra, don't start defensive. I stood there in my own apartment, surrounded by people who had let themselves in, while Tyler's video game gunfire started exploding from the television. Sarah looked toward the hallway that led to my bedroom and smiled faintly, and something cold moved through me. We sat down because I was still trying to believe reason had a place in the room. My father opened his laptop and turned it toward me. The title slide read, Space Utilization in Modern Living. I actually laughed once, not because it was funny, but because my body did not know what else to do. You made a presentation? I made facts, he said. He clicked through charts showing average square footage per person, infant needs, housing affordability, and one slide titled, Moral Cost of Inaction. My mother dabbed at her eyes through the whole thing. Aunt Patricia nodded like she was attending a lecture. Uncle Michael mostly stared at the floor, uncomfortable but silent. Then my mother spoke. I've dreamed of being a grandmother for so long, she said, and now that blessing is here. But instead of joy, we have this division. This division is not because of me, I said. Sarah's eyes flashed. You keep saying that like my baby is a burden. I never said that. You don't have to. We all hear what you mean. Tyler paused the game long enough to add, Honestly, the building is perfect, and if I'm going to be around helping with the baby, we need a place where I can keep some of my music stuff. My father frowned. Music stuff? For the band, Tyler said. Maybe the garage could work. My building doesn't even have a garage, I said. He shrugged. Then storage or whatever. That was the moment my calm almost cracked. Not because Tyler was ridiculous, though he was, but because no one corrected him. No one said, Tyler, this is not your home. No one said, Sarah, your sister has already said no. They just sat there, like the details could be worked out once I stopped being difficult. I took a breath and used the sentences I had practiced. I understand Sarah needs stability. I understand having a baby is scary. But this apartment is my home, not a family resource. I am willing to help Sarah and Tyler look for a bigger place. I'm even willing to contribute $1,000 toward a deposit if there is a written plan and a lease in their names. For half a second, the room went silent. Then Sarah stood. Actually, she said, I need to see something. Before I could ask what she meant, she walked straight down the hall toward my bedroom. My bedroom. I followed her, heart pounding. I found her inside my closet, with her phone flashlight on, scanning the walls and shelves. What are you doing? I asked. She smiled over her shoulder. This would be perfect for the nursery. The closet is big enough for a changing station. I stared at her. This is my bedroom. For now, she said softly. Something inside me went very still. Who told you you could come in here? She slipped her phone into her pocket, as if I were the one embarrassing her. Mom said you'd come around. That sentence hit harder than the dinner had. Not maybe. Not hopefully. Not if Sandra agrees. You'd come around. I walked back to the living room fast enough that Sarah had to hurry behind me. When I reached the hallway, I heard my mother's voice coming from my office. No, the crib would fit better against this wall, she said. I stepped into the doorway and found her holding a measuring tape. My father stood beside her, nodding at the wall where my bookshelf stood. The desk where I had worked late nights for years was pushed slightly away from the corner. I looked at the yellow tape stretched across my floor and felt something in me break cleanly instead of shattering. Get out, I said. Everyone turned. My mother blinked. Sandra, we're just trying to plan. No, you're trying to take over my home. My father's jaw tightened. Don't be dramatic. I said get out. Sarah's face twisted. You're really doing this? To your pregnant sister? I am doing this because every person in this room walked into my apartment and acted like I had already lost it. Aunt Patricia stood. This is exactly the selfishness we were worried about. I looked at her. Then you can give Sarah your house. She went pale and offended, which told me everything. My father slammed his laptop shut. You are being ridiculous. We are discussing your sister's future. I am discussing my present, I said. And right now, all of you need to leave. It took 10 ugly minutes. My mother cried. My father muttered about disrespect. Tyler asked if he could finish the level first. Sarah stood in the doorway with one hand on her stomach, staring at me like I had personally endangered her child. As she stepped into the hall, she turned back and said, "Oh, I made an appointment with a designer for Thursday at 2. She specializes in nurseries. You don't need to be here. Just leave the key under the mat." I almost laughed again. Absolutely not. Sarah rolled her eyes. Fine. I'll just use Mom's key. The door closed behind them, and the apartment fell silent. I stood there for a long time, staring at the lock, my hands shaking. Then I picked up my phone and called a locksmith. By Monday morning, the locks were changed. By Tuesday, Sarah sent me a Pinterest board titled Sandra's Apartment Nursery Ideas. It had 47 pins. 47 color palettes, cribs, wall decals, a rug that looked exactly sized for the space beneath my bedroom window. By Wednesday, my mother called crying because the locksmith had turned her away when she tried to let the designer in. She said I had humiliated her. She said the designer had already been paid $200. She said escalation was unnecessary. By Thursday, my building manager called to ask if I had requested to add Sarah and Tyler to my lease. I said no so quickly the woman on the phone went quiet. That afternoon, my door camera caught Sarah standing outside my apartment with a woman I did not recognize. They tried 3 different keys. Sarah jiggled the lock for almost 10 minutes before giving up. That night, the family group chat exploded. Mom wrote, "Sandra refused to let the designer in. $200 wasted." Sarah wrote, "Some aunt you'll be. Hope you can live with yourself." Dad wrote, "Your mother hasn't stopped crying. Happy now?" The next morning, I woke to 14 missed calls and a screenshot from my cousin Emma. Sarah had created a Facebook event called Help Sarah Move into Her New Home. The address was mine. 23 people had already RSVP'd. I commented one sentence before it disappeared. "This is my apartment. Sarah does not live here and will not be moving in." The event was deleted within an hour, but the screenshot spread faster than the truth. That night, Tyler texted me. Not to apologize, not to explain. He asked, "Are you keeping the PS5 when you move out, or is it staying for the baby when she's older?" I read the message 3 times. Then I took screenshots of everything, ordered security cameras, and contacted a lawyer. Because my family had stopped asking for my apartment. They had started planning my eviction from it. After the Facebook event, everything went quiet for almost 2 weeks. Too quiet. My mother stopped sending articles. My father stopped sending spreadsheets. Sarah stopped posting vague little quotes about family and betrayal. Even Tyler disappeared from my messages, which should have felt like peace, but instead felt like standing in a house after hearing glass break somewhere in the dark. I used the silence to protect myself. I installed security cameras at my door and balcony. I sent the footage and screenshots to my lawyer. A cease and desist letter went to my parents and Sarah. I changed my emergency contact at work from my mother to my best friend Nadia. I even started therapy, because I was waking up at 3 in the morning convinced I heard a key turning in my lock. My therapist said something I could not stop thinking about. "This is not only about an apartment, Sandra. This is about your family believing your stability belongs to them." That sentence stayed with me. Because she was right. They had never truly seen my hard work as mine. They saw it as a cushion for Sarah's mistakes, a resource to be redirected whenever she needed rescuing. On the 3rd week of silence, my cousin Emma texted me. "Are you actually moving?" I stared at the message. "What are you talking about?" She sent a screenshot from Sarah's Instagram story. It showed my apartment building from the courtyard. And not just the building. My balcony was visible. My basil pot. My rose plants. The caption read, "Can't wait to set up baby girl's room. So grateful for family support." My blood went cold. I called Sarah. No answer. I called my mother. Straight to voicemail. I called my father. Nothing. Something was happening. 2 days later, I was at the company office when my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my neighbor, Kevin. "Hey, Sandra, there's a moving truck outside. You moving?" For a second, the world narrowed into one bright, silent point. I opened my security camera app with shaking hands. There it was. A U-Haul parked outside my building. My parents' car in the visitor spot. Sarah and Tyler's beat-up Honda behind it. Through the grainy angle of the camera, I could see boxes stacked near the entrance. I told my boss I had a family emergency and left. The drive home took 20 minutes, but it felt like I drove through molasses. Every red light felt personal. Every slow car felt like part of their plan. By the time I turned onto my street, my hands were cramped around the steering wheel. The truck was real. The back was open. Inside were boxes labeled kitchen, Sarah clothes, and baby room. A crib. A changing table. Plastic bins. Tyler's guitar case. They were not trying to convince me anymore. They were moving her in. I parked crooked and rushed toward the building. My apartment door was still closed, thank God. But I heard voices in the hallway before I turned the corner. My mother was on the phone. "Yes, the locksmith should be here any minute. My daughter gave us permission. She just forgot to leave the key." My daughter gave us permission. I started recording immediately and called 911. When the locksmith arrived, my father stepped forward with cash in his hand. Sarah stood behind him, crying before anyone had even challenged her. Tyler leaned against the wall. Checking the time like this was an inconvenience. The locksmith reached for his tools. "Do not touch that lock," I said. Everyone turned. My mother's face changed fast. Surprise first, then irritation, then that wounded expression she used when she wanted witnesses. "Sandra," she said. "Perfect timing. We were just trying to make this easier." "I called the police," I said. "You were trespassing." Sarah let out a sob. "How can you do this to your pregnant sister?" Tyler looked at me and said, "The truck is only rented until 4. That was all he cared about. Not the law. Not my home. Not the fact that they had lied to a locksmith. The rental clock." The locksmith stepped back instantly. "I'm not getting involved in a family dispute." "It's not a dispute," I said. "It's attempted illegal entry." The police arrived minutes later. I showed them my ID, mortgage documents, the cease and desist letter, and the camera footage of Sarah previously trying keys at my door. My parents tried to call it a misunderstanding. Sarah kept crying. Tyler kept glancing at the truck. Then one of the men they had brought to help move got nervous when the officers checked IDs. He had an outstanding warrant for unpaid child support and was arrested right there in the hallway. The other man admitted he had been hired to help move old furniture out if needed. When an officer explained that removing my belongings would be an illegal eviction, he suddenly remembered another job and left. My father's face turned red. "This is what you wanted? Police against your own family?" "No," I said. "I wanted you to respect the word no." My mother wailed that I was hurting the baby by stressing Sarah. Sarah cried that she had already told everyone the new address. Tyler asked if they could at least unload the truck since everything was packed. The officers ordered them to leave and formally warned them not to come back. I followed just far enough to see inside the U-Haul. It was not only baby furniture. It was Sarah's entire apartment. They had packed everything. They had given notice. They were so sure they could take my home that they had made themselves homeless. When I finally went back inside, my legs felt weak. I checked my mail because I needed something normal to do. Inside was an envelope from my parents. There was a rental agreement inside, dated 3 weeks ahead. It said Sarah would rent my apartment from me for $500 a month. My mortgage was $2,400. The agreement had Sarah's signature and my parents' signatures as witnesses. My signature line was blank. A note was attached. Sandra, we thought this would be fair. You can stay with us for a few months until you find something suitable, Mom and Dad. I sat on the floor with the papers in my hands and finally understood how far they had been willing to go. They were not waiting for me to agree. They were preparing to forge my name. That night, I filed for a restraining order, sent everything to my lawyer, removed my parents from every beneficiary form I could find, and blocked the family group chat after saving it. Before I blocked them, I saw the last messages. Aunt Patricia wrote, "Calling police on your pregnant sister. Shameful." My father wrote, "All this for an apartment." My mother wrote, "I don't have a daughter anymore." Sarah wrote, "I'll remember this when you need family." I stared at her message for a long time. Then I looked around my apartment. My couch, my desk, my rose plants on the balcony, the home they had tried to steal in broad daylight, and for the first time I did not feel guilty. I felt awake. Tiếp phần ngắn hơn. The lawsuit arrived 1 week later in a certified envelope so thick it looked important enough to scare me. For about 10 seconds it did. Then I read the claims and felt something between disbelief and disgust. My family was suing me for emotional distress, breach of verbal contract, unlawful eviction, and damages for the moving truck and storage fees. They wanted $15,000 plus access to my apartment. I had to read that line twice. They wanted the court to give them the home they had failed to take by force. My lawyer laughed when he saw it. Not politely. Actually laughed. "Sandra," he said, tapping the pages, "you can't unlawfully evict someone who never lived there." Still, the case moved forward long enough for discovery, and that was when the truth stopped being a family argument and became evidence. My lawyer subpoenaed messages related to the fake lease. Sarah had texted Tyler's mother every step of the plan. Move into Sandra's apartment. Have Sandra keep paying the mortgage while staying with our parents. Pay $500 for a few months, then stop once the baby comes. She won't throw out family with a baby. After a year, force her to sign it over, because managing everything will be too stressful. Then came the line that made my lawyer go silent. Sarah had written, "Once we're in long enough, squatters' rights kick in." Tyler's mother had replied, "Brilliant. She seems like a pushover when it comes to family." Except they had looked up the law wrong. That was not how it worked in our state. And the judge was not amused. Their lawsuit was dismissed within weeks. The judge called it frivolous. My counterclaim did not disappear. Harassment was proven through the calls, texts, fake deliveries, Craigslist posts, and locksmith attempts. The fake lease became the center of everything. Sarah received probation and community service. My parents received probation as conspirators. They were ordered to pay damages and cover my legal fees. It was not a dramatic courtroom movie moment. No one gasped. No one shouted. But when the judge read the order, I felt 7 years of swallowed anger finally breathe. After the court documents became public record, the extended family went quiet. Aunt Patricia deleted her posts. Uncle Christopher suddenly claimed he had never taken sides. Cousin Mark stopped sending judgmental messages. Only Emma wrote me privately. "You were right," she said. "I'm sorry." Sarah had the baby 2 months later, a girl. I found out through Emma. I did not visit. Maybe some people would call that cold, but I had learned that in my family, one open door became a hallway they could storm through. And then came the twist no one expected. Tyler's mother called me from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I met her at a cafe. She looked exhausted and embarrassed. She told me Tyler had lied about his job. He was not barely surviving on part-time vape shop shifts. He had been working full-time for his uncle's construction company for 2 years, hiding money in a separate account. He had $23,000 saved. All that time, my parents had gone into debt helping Sarah. Sarah had posted online, asking for baby supplies. Tyler had let everyone believe he was broke while planning to leave for Los Angeles with his band. When Sarah found out, the fight was explosive. Tyler moved out. My parents were left with Sarah, the baby, bills, resentment, and the life they had tried to dump onto me. For once, I did not rush in to fix anything. I stayed home, my home. 3 months later, my family's lawsuit was gone, the counterclaim was settled, and the restraining orders were in place. For the first time in my life, my phone did not feel like a weapon waiting to go off. Sarah had the baby, a little girl. I found out through Emma. I did not visit. I know some people would call that cruel, but I had finally learned that one small opening in my family could become a door they kicked down. I still felt bad for the baby. She had done nothing wrong. So I quietly set up an education fund in her name through a trust Sarah could not touch. She will not know about it until she turns 18. It is the only way I can help without handing my family a rope to pull me back in. My parents were still living with the consequences of the life they tried to force onto me. Sarah and the baby moved into their house. Tyler left after Sarah discovered he had been hiding $23,000 while pretending to be broke. My mother retired early to help with childcare. My father started working overtime to cover bills. Their house, once so eager to absorb my apartment, became crowded, loud, and bitter. Then came the letter. It arrived through my lawyer. 3 pages from my mother about how much she missed me, how the family felt broken, how she hoped we could move past everything. I read it twice, looking for one sentence that said, "I'm sorry. It was not there. Not once." So I threw it away. My apartment is still mine. I redecorated the office into a real work and gaming space. I got promoted because not being drained by family chaos gave me back energy I did not realize I had lost. I started dating a man named Daniel, someone I met after therapy one afternoon when we both reached for the same terrible vending machine coffee. He knows the whole story, and once joked, "At least they revealed themselves before I had to meet them at Thanksgiving. For the first time, I have a chosen family. Friends who knock before entering. People who respect the word no. People who come over for dinner and do not measure my walls. Sometimes I still stand in the hallway and remember my mother's voice saying I did not need 2 bedrooms. She was wrong. I needed every inch of that place, not because of space, but because it was the first thing in my life no one else got to claim. My home is mine. My peace is mine. My life is mine. And after 29 years of being the dependable daughter, the fixer, the quiet one who always figured it out, I finally chose myself.